everyone, and welcome to the newest episode of the Read Right to Left podcast. I am G from Simply G. I am joined by my always wonderful co-host, Ray from Whimsical Pictures.
Hello, everybody.
And today we are super duper excited because we have two amazing guests.
Yay!
Aisha from MommaLuvsManga.
Hi.
And Shae from ShaeGeeksOut.
Hey!
So we've invited these two lovely ladies onto the show because basically they're much more informed on this topic than we are. They're the resident romance lovers of MangaTube, I would say. And so because, I don't know if it's quite the same as what you think, Ray, but I don't have that much insight with current romance titles. And so I think it just seems like we needed these guests. We needed them on the show.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like, I feel like I read so much, like, random shoujo manga when I was in high school. But it's like, in terms of the landscape right now, I am woefully underinformed.
So thank you so much, you guys, for coming on. We really appreciate it. And
yes, thank you for having us.
How about you tell us and our listeners a little bit about yourselves, your channel, your background with romance manga, and yeah.
Okay, so I'm Aisha, and my channel is MommaLuvsManga, and I talk about manga on that channel. Wow, that's awkward. Okay, so as far as like my background with romance, I mean that's the genre that I started with. I started reading Fruits Basket. That was my first manga, and of course, then I ventured into Red High School Host Club, and I wasn't going to mention this, but Vampire Night, and it just basically anything that was romance, I was into it. And I will admit that, like, at one point, I shifted from more like shoujo romance to josei romance because I am in my 30s. I hit an age where I realized that the kids in shoujo romance are close to my oldest son's age, and it was just kind of weird. So I kind of dabble. I still read a little shoujo romance, but I tend to prefer josei romance. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say.
All right, well, I'm Shae from ShaeGeeksOut. I originally started as a booktuber, and then a little over 3 years ago, I started experimenting with the format of manga because I was an anime fan. And the first thing I picked up was Fairy Tail, surprisingly. But the first series I completed was Let's Dance a Waltz, which is a very little known shoujo about ballroom dancing teenagers. And so it's just really fun. And that's what kind of opened the door to shoujo for me. I was also reading Fruits Basket at the time. It's just one of those gateway mangas for the romance side of manga, and it's fantastic, and I love it. And from there, it just kind of became this black hole where I wanted to read everything, and I still haven't gotten out of it because we continue to get amazing titles. I do primarily read shoujo and josei titles. I don't read too many seinen, and I don't read too many shonen because I prefer to actually watch those in an anime format. I tend to enjoy them more that way. But yes, I really love shoujo. I read it ad nauseum, and yes, that is just kind of who I am.
Well, today we're going to be talking all about different romance manga for Valentine's. So, I personally have, when I look at my collection currently, I don't have a huge amount of shoujo romance manga. A lot of them have romantic elements to them, like Year of the Dawn, or even, I guess, Requiem of the Rose King, but they're not really romance manga in the same way that a Kimi Toroke or an Ottoman is. I find that my reading of romance tends to be, like with Aisha, in the josei and even the seinen demographics, because I like particular mangaka who write romance within those demographics, and I feel like similarly to you, there's there's a disconnect between a high school love story
Mm-hmm.
and like an adult or an older, like a love story between adults or older people outside of high school.
Mm-hmm.
But I find that my reading in general doesn't really focus a huge amount on just purely romance fiction, or just like the falling in love story in the same way that other people's reading might. So that's why as I said, I wanted to have some people who were more well-versed in that type of reading on the channel. But yeah, I believe my first shoujo manga was probably Lovely Complex, and I was reading that because I watched the anime, and that was one of my first anime. I really, really love that series, and I'll talk a little bit more about it later. But I mean, again, Fruits Basket, Oron are kind of the quintessential gateways to this type of thing. I also really enjoyed Kimi Toroke, although it is very long for what it is. But slowly over time, my tastes changed to, as I said, much more the seinen and josei focused titles. Things like Akiko Higashimura's stuff and Kaoru Mori's works, things like that, where I'm an adult and hopefully wanting to fall in love. So I like reading about adults falling in love.
Yeah, and see, I'm the weirdo who's like the oldest person on this podcast who reads all the shoujo. But that's okay. It's just part of who I am.
Nothing wrong with the first
okay.
love story. Nothing wrong with the first love story.
It's true. And maybe it's because I'm like happy and settled, like, and I don't have kids. Like, I don't feel any weird disconnect in reading it. Just because I haven't read it.
Yeah. For me, I guess me and G share about half a brain. So kind of in the same boat where when I look around at my collection, it's like there's a lot of series that like have romance in them or really focus on human relationships, but that's not the only thing they're about. There's always some other genre element, or there'll be a fantasy element, or it'll just be more on the literary fiction side, I guess. So I don't read a lot that's like purely just about, the romance. Those titles, as far as what I read, are very few and far between. So I'm very glad that we have you guys on here to give some recommendations and the like. Growing up in high school, there was a ton of just like random old shoujo manga in my public library. So I like most of the output of like shoujo beat, like circa like the entire aughts, I have read it, but it's like it was so many years ago now that whether I remember what actually happens in it is up for debate.
Right.
So it's kind of in a weird place where I've read a lot of shoujo manga, but I haven't read a lot of shoujo manga that's out now. So yeah, I'm definitely interested in hearing about some of the titles that like I've been vaguely interested in, but maybe haven't taken the plunge on.
Gotcha. Are there any specifically? I'm happy to like talk about any of them. Just ask.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, Waiting for Spring.
I love Waiting for Spring so much. Oh my gosh. It's 13 volumes long. We're finally going to get volume 13 in the U.S. this year. And I'm just so excited. I love it so much. And I'm Team Toa forever. And I'll die on that ship. I don't even care.
Yeah, I always see the covers to that one in the bookstore.
It's just so pretty.
And I'm like, should I? And Shortcake Cake is the other one with really cute
Shortcake
covers
Cake
that I always see.
That one's a boarding house style one, so it's all like shared living space. And then there's one guy who likes the girl, but she likes one of the other guys in the house. And that guy likes her too, but they're never on the same wavelength about it. And so the other guy tries to insert himself. And it's dramatic, but I love it. Oh my gosh.
The art looks really cute in that one.
It really is.
I might pick it
I'm
up.
trying to think if there's anything I can compare like the art to, like that maybe is a bit older that you guys would have read, but I can't off the top of my head. It's just that
Honestly,
newer cutesy shoujo style.
Yeah. Like, the style that's really popular right now, I think, is really visually attractive. I really... It's super cute. It kind of, like, gives me, like, Pixiv, Instagram vibes. I don't know.
Oh my gosh,
it's
yes.
Just so...
Disco Girls for the win.
Right? They look like, a lot of the shoujo protagonists now. I guess it's probably the other way around. The e-girls look like the shoujo protagonists. It's not the shoujo protagonists who look like the e-girls.
I would agree with that.
But yeah, that's me. Kind of what I've read is old, and with some exceptions, and I am here open-eared, open-minded to talk about maybe some of the newer stuff mixed in with the old stuff.
I was thinking about just, I guess, a more recent-ish title that I like. It's not shoujo though. It's josei, but full-time life escapist. I don't hear
that's one
people
that's on
talk
my
about
list
that a
though.
lot.
I'm so excited. Volume 10 just came
so
out in
good.
Japan. I am so excited for that to be available digitally, because I read the whole thing in like one day. It's really good.
I tried to read it and I didn't like it that much.
Really? Oh, explain. I would like to know.
I don't even remember. Like, that's part of the problem, is I read the first couple volumes and I don't remember them.
And it just didn't grab
I remember
you, right.
I did not like the art.
I can see that. Honestly, the art is not... it's not pretty, I guess, is the word I'm looking for. It's not, like, cutesy, whimsical. I definitely feel like the target audience is older women who maybe aren't as inclined to cutesy stuff. Now, I like cutesy stuff, but I definitely think there's a specific audience that they were kind of, I guess,
well, it was more
towards.
like I was upset with, the perspective and the anatomy. A lot of it was off in ways that were bothering me. So,
you're like, I can't deal.
As an former art student.
Yeah, that's right.
So I like a lot of, like, different art styles, and a lot that people consider ugly, but, like, yeah, that was one that I was not gelling with.
Right. I think for me, it just has one of my favorite tropes, which is the fake marriage trope.
See, that's the other thing.
I love fake marriage and fake dating in literature, but I haven't really found it in manga in a way that I love. Yeah.
So my thing is I like fake dating tropes, all right, but I don't really like it when marriage gets involved. So I'm like, I didn't like the whole, like, they were, like, so cold to each other, and I didn't like that he was hiring her as a house servant. I was like, ugh.
See, yeah, that doesn't feel quite so nice. Like, I'm going to use an example real quick. There's a recent book that I just finished, like, this week. It's called Marriage of Inconvenience. I talked about it a little bit on our Thirsty Thursday live show as well. But this girl, she's basically an heiress, and she's got this cousin who's trying to, like, have her committed so that he can have access to her fortune. Because he's the one in charge of the shares at this point. But she's got this friend. It's a guy she's liked for a long time, but they've been friends for like 3 years. So they've known each other for a long time. So she approaches him and says, I need you to marry me so that my cousin can't commit me. And he's like, okay, because he's into her too. And so it becomes this like fake dating, like fake marriage, but they're really dating kind of moment. And it's so cute. And he's so like respectful. He's not pushy with her. And like she gives him space, he gives her space, but like in a realistic way. It just felt like this could be somebody's really real life. Where in manga, I've never felt that when I've seen those fake marriage tropes. Though Our Fake Marriage, it's a current releasing digital title from the Kodansha imprint. is
Yes,
doing
I
a
have the first
really good
volume that I
job
need
of
to
that
read.
because that's like childhood friends kind of situation.
Mhm.
And I'm really enjoying that a lot right now. So I need to keep going with that one. I've read the first 2 volumes and really enjoyed it so far. That's been like my
Yeah.
top
Mm.
tier fake marriage
Mhm.
manga read so far.
Yeah, I just don't
Ah.
like the fact that it felt like their relationship, from what I remember, which is
Mhm.
little, it felt like she was like the basis of their relationship to begin with, rather than being like friendship or mutually helping each other. It was like she was gonna do his chores for him for like her own reasons. But I was like,
Yeah.
that doesn't feel like a very romantic start to a relationship.
Right. Well, to
So-
be fair, like they start out that way because they had never met before and she needed a job and her dad was like, "Oh, hey, I know this guy who can hire you." And it turned out that he was hired looking for someone to clean his house because he was busy at work cuz in Japan they work all the time. And so she was just going to be his housekeeper. And that was like their relationship was cold because that was supposed to just be a professional relationship. But then over time, like they do start to have feelings for each other and they're pretending to be married because it to make it look a little more appropriate to have like
well, I also
I guess
don't
this
like the
woman
trope of
there.
like the guy like
Mhm.
not taking care of himself.
Oh yeah, I can
Yeah, very strict about useless boys.
Oh,
I'm very strict
I
about
could go
useless
on a whole
boys.
tirade about useless boys, but we're gonna save that for another day.
Yeah, I'm gonna need the boy in the relationship to carry his own weight.
that was so funny. I don't know that Ray, that was hilarious. Just the way you were just like, no, girl.
Yeah, I mean, I
You
know what I like. That's the other thing I was gonna mention is that I am actually on the aromantic spectrum. So, I think I find that a lot of the things that people relate to in romance or find really ideal or like cute or sexy or whatever, I
It just
like,
doesn't resonate with you. I totally get that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's a very interesting perspective. I feel like I've heard you mention that, but I don't think I've ever actually talked to you
I
in
mean, I'm
depth about
still
that, so
like
that's
I'm still
interesting.
figuring everything out, but it's just
Mhm.
I'm somewhere
Yeah.
on that spectrum.
Okay.
Somewhere.
Right.
All good.
Which is kind of weird because I'm not asexual, but
Mm.
But there are a
you
lot
know.
of people who like know what they like sexually, but
Mhm.
romance wise
Mhm.
they don't know where they land. So that completely actually
Mhm.
makes
Mhm.
sense to me. My husband's kind of that way too.
But yeah. So
It just makes your perspective all the more interesting in a romance kind of
Mhm.
setting. Because it's interesting to find what stands out to people who aren't necessarily hopeless romantics like myself.
So on that note, do we want to start with some questions? I know we got a lot.
So the biggest one that we got from Mercedes at Pixelated Lenses, they asked us for a romance manga starter pack of 4 to 5 recommended series from each of us. I guess for people who haven't necessarily read a lot of romance manga, don't know where to start with it, and would like some ideas of some titles they might like.
Sounds good. So I'm going to go
Mhm.
first because that's what I said. So my first choice for a manga starter pack for romance would be one of my all-time favorites that I try to keep getting everyone to read, Emma by Kaoru Mori, or Emma Victorian Romance.
I
is
promise
what
I'll
the
get
anime
to
is
it
called.
soon. I promise. You've been telling me for like a year now.
This is just quintessential G content. It's a historical fiction. It's Kaoru Mori title. It's set in Victorian England. It's just it's so good. This is a 10-volume series completed in English. It's actually the main story between Emma and William is completed in the 7th volume of the 10, and then the final 3 volumes are all side character sort of short story things like that. I really I decided to put this one on this list, one because it's completed, but 2, it also doesn't have the age gap that Mori's other work, A Bride Story, which I adore, has.
I love A Bride Story
but it still
so much.
has this. It's a fabulous title, but it doesn't have that large age gap, and it really has the same kind of romantic respect for the characters that all of her titles do. All of her characters understand each other, and they are respectful to each other. You feel like you understand why these characters want to be together, and their relationship is just so beautiful to watch grow, even when circumstance means that they can't be together for a large part of the series. So if you're not familiar, Emma is a story about a maid called Emma who catches the attention and quickly falls in love with a young master. She works for a woman who used to be a governess, and one day one of her former pupils comes to visit her. He's grown up and he's just paying his respects whilst he's in town, and they meet each other on the doorstep because he kind of trips and drops his hat and runs into her and all sorts of things.
All the shenanigans.
But they quickly, as I said, catch each other's eye, and he just head over heels immediately. He doesn't care about the social divide. He doesn't care about any of that. He knows that he wants to be with her, but of course, being from a higher social class, there's a lot of pushback from his family, from society at large. It's so good. As always, I really think that Mori does a great job in making all of the characters very human, very likable, very sympathetic. There are romantic rivals and things like that within the series, but none of them are villainized, which is always really wonderful. I love just Hakim is one of the characters. He's an Indian prince. He makes such a grand entrance atop elephants. It's wonderful. But all of the characters are really, really good. And my favorite couple, not aside, because Emma and William are a really great couple, there's also William's parents who are somewhat estranged, but it's really interesting reading their perspective and then getting insight as to why his family might not accept Emma or the relationship because of their own background and their own experiences, despite ultimately wanting the best for their son and wanting to respect his feelings. And then also we have another couple called the Germans that Emma ultimately starts working for, and I love them so much.
I love those two
so much. The Germans
I
are
need
my
to read
favorite. They are later on in the story, and they're so good. So yeah. Anyway,
they kind of like they remind me of like Morticia and
Gomez?
You know, the Addams family.
Oh, yes!
Just in how like shamelessly sexually attracted they are to each other.
Yes, I love that kind of stuff.
And romantically just like into each other. They're goals. #goals. And the lady is a very good Kaoru Mori lady.
Oh yeah?
Who is very confident in her body.
Yes,
so
we
she's
love
hot.
to see
Okay.
that.
So Aisha needs to read it.
She's hot and she spends a lot of time in various states of undress.
Nudity. Yeah, it's a great series. Because it's complete as well, it is easier to recommend compared to A Bride Story. Just really, really wonderful. I want more people to read it. And of course, Yen has done these beautiful 2-in-1 omnibus hardcover releases. Also, if you have those, the dust covers, the dust jackets, are reversible. So you can choose which cover you want.
That's so cool.
Gimme.
So it's got...
The more Kaoru Mori art, the better.
Right? I just have to
So you
say
don't
really
miss out
quick with
on
the
any of the
bride story
covers.
specifically, the insert
Mhm.
in volume 7 has
Yeah.
me living. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful.
I mean, we're talking about beautiful women in states of undress.
Yeah, because it's a bunch of women in the bathhouse, man.
Oh my gosh, that
All shapes
volume.
and
And then
sizes.
the most recent one comes back to them. Is that one out?
Yeah,
That one
it's not
can't
out yet, but I
be out in
can't wait.
English.
So keen.
Every time I see it in the bookstore, I'm like, oh, maybe I should just get it in Japanese.
So yeah, Kawamori, fantastic creator. Bride Story isn't on my list for a couple of different reasons, but I do highly recommend it. I'm sure everyone here in the chat recommends it. It's wonderful. But her work just in general is phenomenal. And I hope we see, although it's not a romance series, I hope we see Shirley relicensed one day.
I'd love to.
So next on my list is You Got Me Senpai, which is a digital title being released by Kodansha. This has 6 or 7 volumes out in English currently, and this is a high school romance. We have, I think, because of switching classrooms, something along those lines, this girl, I think she's this first or second year, she sees scrawled on a table, like graffitied on her desk, after like a club meeting or something, and she responds, and the next time there's like a response to that, so she's trying to figure out. Anyway, they end up listening to the same music, and she's really wanting to meet this person who has been writing on her desk. So she tracks him down, and he's in the year or so above her, and she just kind of like falls in love, or she sees him and is like really interested in him, wants to get to know him better, but he's not really that interested in, like he doesn't know her. They're relative strangers, so he's like, I don't like, who are you? And she kind of just keeps up spending time with him and trying to get closer, and he's quite awkward in just, he's not an awkward person in general, but he just doesn't know how to handle the situation of this girl just wanting to be his friend, like trying to come into his life. But ultimately they start dating, and I really like this one, and I mention this one because I find that I think it's a very realistic depiction of a high school romance in that first serious relationship, and trying to, just get through all of the various decisions and choices that you make and discussions that you have to have with your partner and with the people around you when you are starting to more properly date someone.
Mm-hmm.
I think they have a really good chemistry in how they talk to each other, as well as just like their actual romance. And I think they counterbalance each other personality-wise as well. Neither, like the girl, she's not super hyper energetic, but she is a lot more enthusiastic in going out and doing things, and that's balanced very well with his more kind of level-headedness, and also kind of his shyness. He doesn't like PDA where people might
He's reserved.
Yeah, he doesn't want PDA where his friends might laugh at him. I don't know why anyone would laugh at someone for having a girlfriend, but who understands teenagers?
I was gonna say teenage boys especially, they will.
Exactly. So I think that at this point in the manga, it starts very strong, and at this point in the manga, they've been dating for a long time. They've had their first like physical relationship, but it's grown a lot to be very understandable as to how they've gotten to this point, and you can again feel like you understand why these characters like each other, and the difficulties in properly learning how to spend time with another person romantically, and having to not compromise, but take your time and talk with them and make sure that everyone's on the right page and at the right stage of their life. It's very, very good. I probably didn't sell it very well, but it's
No, it
good.
sounds good.
And it's also very beautiful. The art is quite well done. It's quite cute covers. And I just think when we're talking about a first love or like a first serious love type of story, this is the style that I really like to read, especially when it's set in high school, because they feel like actual teenagers who are going through actual teenage things and who want to be treated seriously or want to make decisions that are serious and that do impact their life. But they don't have quite the maturity that someone in their 20s or 30s does. So it's definitely one of those titles that you can see this relationship and these characters working out, or maybe not in the next couple of years. And that's kind of the reality of the situation, but it doesn't make that relationship any less valid. I think it's also ongoing. I know it's not completed, so obviously it's ongoing. My next one is Maiden Railways, which is a one-shot or one complete volume by Asamiku Nakamura.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, I adore this series. This is a collection of short stories of various types of romance or various types of love, I should say, because it's not purely a romantic story. And it follows a lot of different individuals who take a particular train line and their interactions with the people in their life or other people on the train. And oh, it's so good. It's so good. This also does have a Yuri. This does have a Yuri element to it. There's a lesbian couple that shows up in a couple chapters. But there's a more general heterosexual romance throughout as well. And there's also, like, it's interesting because each chapter, they're quite self-contained, but at the end it all loops back, and it is all, one larger part of just the day-to-day lives of these people on this train line. And I really love Nakamura's style. I love the atmosphere she gives to her settings and her stories, and I just really love her artwork as well. So yeah, it's been put out by Dempa. Really happy to have more of these types of titles, and at one volume it's not a huge commitment. Then a nostalgic one for me is Lovely Complex. Okay, so this is a 17-volume series, shoujo manga about, again, two high schoolers who ultimately fall in love. And this is one that I was introduced to via the anime, which is very good. You can buy it from Discotheque nowadays. But this is about a girl who is overly tall. She's 172 centimeters, which is not actually tall, but in Japan she's seen as some freakishly tall giant. And her classmate / the ire of her life, Otani, who is incredibly short, who is, I think, 154 centimeters, which is, again, not that short, but he thinks of himself as a small gremlin. And the two of them were very much at odds throughout their first year because they were always partnered up together. And they're called a comedic duo because they always argue, and everyone else would think it was so funny because they were so mismatched. And so one day a new transfer student comes to school, and Risa has her eyes on him. She is keen. And this new kid befriends Otani because they both, I think, end up on the basketball team. And she says, hey, he says to her, if I will help you date this new guy, if you help me date your friend. And so they come to an agreement that they'll help each other, find romance with their friends. That doesn't work out pretty much immediately because the friends end up dating each other. So, heartbroken,
they commiserate together.
Well, kind of that. They make this pact or this deal that whoever can fall in love with someone else or whoever like gets a date with someone else first has to buy has to treat the other person. So I really like this one because these two actually, for as much as they annoy each other, they're really good friends. They have a lot in common, and because of this, they spend more time together. And like the whole group of them, because Risa already has a friend, friends with a couple, and then obviously her friend and this new guy. So there's a lot of these kids who are just hanging out, and Otani and Risa are just kind of the spare singles. But they have a very similar taste in music and games and all sorts of things, and they spend a lot of time together, and they slowly realize that, you know, we have a lot in common. Risa, as typically is the case, recognizes her feelings. Otani's a bit of an idiot and doesn't. So they slowly but ultimately get together, and again, it's really nice to see.
Slow burn
I like
romance.
it when, but I really like it when a couple actually acts like friends. They actually act like they want to spend time together.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And they have a lot in common.
Yeah.
Because, okay, I'm going to talk about this later because I know we have a question about tropes, but one of my biggest, favorite tropes is friends to lovers or childhood friends to lovers. That is my thing. And this is kind of quintessentially that. I think it's pretty typical for its era in that there's a lot of like misunderstandings, and I do think it's a little overly long, and it is kind of aged in a way that 2000s manga doesn't age super gracefully. There's a transgender character who isn't taken super seriously initially, although she's outside of her introduction, they actually handle her really, really well, which is a nice thing. And, you know, there's parts where you're like, man, you guys are idiots, but at the same time, every 16-year-old is an idiot, so it's understandable. And yeah, so I also really like it because it follows them throughout their second and third year. So you see this larger growth of their relationship, and after their graduation as well, actually. Sort of the last couple volumes shows them trying to figure out what they want to do for the future and getting to that point. And so it handles that graduation and that next phase of your life and that transition very well as well. And it's just really funny. Like, it's a true romantic comedy in that the comedy kind of takes focus for a lot of the series, and it's just done really well. I also really appreciate that Risa feels like a real girl, like a real human girl. She's not just some like quiet, shy wallflower who is good at sewing and cooking and is perfect if only she, you know, spoke up. Risa, she is such a chaotic gremlin energy. She'll stay up all night gaming, and she'll put on like really bright red lipstick to try and do whatever. And
isn't it like her and Otani have like the same taste in like this like obviously really shitty like rapper?
Yes,
Something like that. Yeah, I read the first volume and I loved it, and I thought I loved their dynamic and the fact that they both had the same taste in maybe not so great music.
I just love the fact when they're like, okay, I'm going to find a boyfriend or I'm going to find a girlfriend first. Immediately the next day, she goes in with like bright red lipstick. He goes in with his hair just spiked to high heaven.
He's going to catch a man.
And he's like, what? And they're both calling each other out, but pretending like they haven't changed anything of themselves. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I always looked like this. It's a fun time. It's a good time. And finally, for my list is, I would be amiss not to mention this, is Perfect World. Phenomenal josei manga. Ongoing, I believe, about two young adults who reconnect after their high school graduation. the girl was in love with this guy, again, who was on the basketball team. Everyone seems to be on the basketball team. In high school, she was a artist, and when they reconnect, she realizes, or it's revealed, that he was in a serious accident in the interim since graduation and is now paralyzed from the waist down, so he is in a wheelchair. And so it not only has... I really like this one because the wheelchair or the disability element isn't just kind of a gimmick to, like, for character design or for drama. It actually goes into a lot of the very serious aspects of being paralyzed from the waist down.
Yeah, it's so well done.
Yeah, and the way that impacts their romantic relationship and the worry that the people around them have for them because of that. It's just really interesting, and it gives a really good insight to physical disability and the aspect of physical disability impacting a more emotional relationship or a romantic relationship. Even when you don't necessarily... Like, you want to believe that people don't think about that sort of thing when you get into a relationship, but the reality is that you can't ignore that, and there are very serious and important aspects to that can't be ignored if you are deciding to go into a full-time relationship with someone who needs specific care or specific things in their life. It's really, really good. It makes me cry, it makes me laugh. And it's coming to print, so pre-order your copies now.
Yay!
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
I really appreciate this series, like, also for its portrayal of, like, I feel like a lot of series where one of the main characters has a disability fall into the trap of them being, like, isolated from the rest of the the disabled community. And in this one, you really, like, you meet a lot of different characters with, like, mobility issues and with paralysis. The guy in this is an architect. He's actually based on a real guy, a real architect. They, except hotter than in real life. But, the mangaka did a lot of research into, like, accessibility, architecture, and, like, I forget what it's called, but it's the architectural movement to really, like, kind of put the people first and put the person and their needs first, which was really cool. It was cool to learn a little bit about that movement within architecture while reading this manga.
Yeah, I think the diversity of the actual community of
the disabled community,
subset. Yes, is done really well. It's similar to what I like so much about I Hear the Sunspot, in that it has multiple characters with hearing loss or deafness, and you don't just get one person's perspective. Exactly, because some, like in that manga, they have characters who are just recently losing their hearing, and then you have characters who have grown up deaf and so never had hearing, and those are two very different perspectives. And the same thing is happening in Perfect World, where you get characters who become paralyzed because of an accident or illness or whatever else, but then some people are just born that way, and that's just their life. And so their experiences are very, very different, and their perspective on their lives are very different, which I think is a crucial thing to be able to have when we are talking about disability in any media, but manga most specifically.
And I also think there's this really just, like, deeply romantic aspect of Perfect World, where it's, like, these two characters who, like, they almost... This is getting into borderline spoiler territory, I guess. There are rival characters in this series. What a shock. And in a lot of ways, like, some of the rivals that come in are, like, the more reasonable choice for these two people. And yet, you know, despite everything seeming to work to try to tear them apart, they keep
They still
being
choose to
drawn
be
back
together,
to each
yeah.
other.
Mm-hmm.
And they choose, you know, the harder path just because they love and
Right.
respect each other so much.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is a really beautiful love story.
Yes. Oh, I want to reread it now.
I know, right?
I'm like, oh.
Lucky you, it's
my
coming out in
gosh.
print this year.
I
You have an
know.
excuse.
Oh, I'm so excited.
All right, so I'm done. On to someone else to talk about their choices.
Who's next?
Okay, I'll go.
Shae.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
So the first one I have is also in the Kodansha digital imprint, and it is called My Pink is Overflowing. I talk about this a lot on my channel, but if you're not around my channel, you don't probably know about it. I think I'm the only one who talks about it. Essentially, we have this girl. She has this kink for guys in white button-up shirts. And she currently seems to have a thing for the manager at work. And like you see her to the point of nosebleeds with this kink. They go that far. And it's really fun and it's really funny. And this guy, this manager, has never had sex. He's a virgin. And so it's this whole dynamic between the two of them where she is like pursuing him pretty aggressively. And then like she takes his virginity and all these things. It's like this whole big thing. And it's really well done. It's got 4 volumes out at the moment. And it's not finished. So I really enjoy it. It's one that probably won't be for everybody because it is on that like borderline weird thing. But a lot of times in manga we see the men being the aggressors in relationships. So I really liked that role was reversed and we have a female who's the aggressor in the relationship because in real life that does happen. And so I like that they depicted that in a realistic way in which this girl really likes this guy and she really went after him hard. And it's really cute. It's really just a really fun time. And it's really quite funny most of the time. Like the first few times they like get kind of intimate but they don't go all the way. Like it's just kind of awkward and clumsy like it would be in real life. And it's just really well done and very like on that funny side as well. Like the humor that's written within the series is really enjoyable. The art as always is really pretty as well. So if you haven't seen the covers on these, like they're each like a different color wash and then you have the couple like posed within it and they're just so pretty. All right. So after that one, I'll go with my other digital choice because I have 2 on my list. And the second one is Our Precious Conversations. So in this story, we're dealing with this girl, and she's got feelings for this guy. So she gets the courage to confess to him at the train station, because they're both at the same train station. And his response is, well, that's rude. It's rude of you to force your feelings on me when I don't even know you, and like basically calls her out on it. And so she's like, okay, well, can I talk to you and get to know you a little bit better? So it's about them going on this journey to get to know one another. And along the way, he discovers that he really likes this girl. But he's kind of shot himself in the foot and he doesn't know what to do about it. And so this currently, as of February 4th, will have 6 volumes out in the US digitally. I can't wait till this one comes to print. This is from the same mangaka who does My Little Monster, which some people have heard about, and there's an anime for that one. But I enjoy this one significantly more. And so if you liked My Little Monster, definitely check out Our Precious Conversations. It's really cute. Each chapter is really short, and they're little vignettes of their conversations. It's really sweet. And there's some other side characters that come into play that are also really well fleshed out, and there's other romances going on around them. It's really cute. I just really like it. Like, more people need to read Our Precious Conversations.
I agree with you, Shae, in that I having read both of these series, this is the stronger one compared to My Little Monster. I follow this via Crunchyroll, the Crunchyroll manga app. So I don't read it like volume to volume. I just read it whenever there's a new chapter. But I really like this one in how kind of awkward both. I mean, Robico does a great job at writing very awkward
Characters, yeah.
characters
Uh-huh.
and awkward relationships.
Because they're both a little
But-
awkward. Like, he's got a super crazy family, and that's why he has all these, like, jaded feelings about women and
Towards
relationships.
women.
And then you've got her who's just like, oh, well, like, she's just that pretty, innocent girl, and she just really likes this guy and just wants to at least be friends with him, because for her, that's enough. And there's other
Yeah,
people
and
who are
there's-
interested in her. It's not like she doesn't have options, but she just really likes this one guy, the nerdy guy in the glasses in the corner of the library. That's who she likes. And I love that because I love my nerdy guys. Like, that's a kink for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that me? Because same.
Right?
But there's definitely an element of his personality in particular of just like trying to protect himself, protect his feelings
Exactly.
as well, early on.
Which is
Because you know that he doesn't take her confession seriously. He thinks that she's pranking him. So that whole like
Oh.
standoffishness is pretty immediate as to why like he acts like kind of a dick very early
yeah,
on.
because of all these
and then-
crazy ants that he has, and it's just insane. You meet one of the crazy ants later in the series, and it really like drives it home like what he dealt with, and it's like, oh, now it all clicks and makes sense.
Plus, he just doesn't get along with the girls in his class anyway because of just his personality.
Uh-huh.
So the idea to
He's
him
that kind of
that
blunt,
someone would be
aggressive.
interested,
He's just that blunt, deadpan kind of person. And I'm married to somebody like that, so like I totally get it. But
Same.
all right, so moving on to the next one. I'm moving out of my digital ones and into ones that are in physical print. It wouldn't be me if I didn't mention Yona of the Dawn. Yes, it is not a very heavily romantic series. This has a lot of other stuff going on that makes it really interesting, but there is like all sorts of romantic things tied to it. So I'm going to give you a brief summary of the first volume, and that's just what's going to happen. So for anybody who's unfamiliar with Yona of the Dawn, in this, we essentially follow a young 16-year-old girl named Yona. We get to know her right around her 16th birthday. And at her 16th birthday party, her favorite cousin, Suwon, shows up, and she's in love with Suwon. Her world is very small, and this is who she's in love with. And then as the day goes on, we get to know her captain of the guard, Hawk, which we all love Hawk, and he's amazing. And I could go on forever about Hawk, but I'm not gonna in this podcast because we'll be here all day. And so, in this first volume, we basically see the love of her life murder her father for the throne. And she runs away with Hawk, who is captain of the guard, because he's there to protect her and protect the crown. And he doesn't understand Suwon because they were all friends growing up. And so she's having to grapple with the fact that the person she loved is not who she thought they were. And she's got this person who's always been by her side and loves her and protects her. And so there's all sorts of romantic feelings and romantic tension throughout the series. And then it obviously has a cast of gorgeous, gorgeous guys that she ends up teaming up with to get the throne back. They are the 4 dragons. And I love each and every one of them.
The Happy Hungry Bunch.
Yes. The Hungry Hungry Bunch, yes. And everybody has a favorite dragon. Mine is Sheena. He is my precious little cinnamon roll. I will protect him forever, as long as I can at least. And he is just my favorite. And if I could choose anyone in the cast, it would be him. I like the quiet, silent types that hide in the corner. Like, it's just who I am, and that's okay. But everybody finds someone that they quote-unquote ship with Yona throughout the series. Long haul, I think it's going to be Hawk, but there's things going on in the series that make me think it could go another way, and I'm having mixed feelings about it. But anyways, everybody just needs to go and read this. It currently has it'll have 22 as of the 4th, I believe. I think that's a release this month. I don't have my paper nearby because I go through them all. Volume 22 comes out February 4th in the U.S. So as of the 4th, it will be out in print. And yes, so Yona of the Dawn's a long one, so if you don't want to get committed to a long one, I completely understand, but it is one of my favorite ongoing shoujo titles at the moment.
I'll also say that Yona is an incredible person who
Oh
has
my
a fair
gosh,
share
yes.
of admirers of multiple genders.
Yes.
And there has been some light Yuri
Yes.
content.
Yes, there has.
Which is also nice.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't just have a reverse harem. She's got some
She's
girls
got
who are
anybody
attached
she
to her
wants
as well.
because she's amazing. But yes, Yona of the Dawn is definitely, like, if you want to try a shoujo title, that is the one that I recommend to almost everyone, because there's something for shonen readers, there's something for romance readers, there's something for everyone in Yona of the Dawn, so I can't not recommend it when I have an opportunity to recommend manga series. All right, next up, I am going to do my one age gap. I did limit my age gaps to one list because that is a trope that I enjoy most of the time. And my choice for this one is going to be Takane and Hana. So in Takane and Hana, we have Takane. And Takane is a 27-year-old executive at a company, and his family keeps trying to set him up with arranged marriage meetings. So his most recent one is with somebody that works at the company. What he doesn't know is that the person who works at the company, the daughter that he was supposed to be set up with, refuses to go to this meeting. So he drags his teenage daughter there in his place because he's afraid of losing his job. So Takane has this marriage interview with Hana, who is this high schooler. And what happens is in the meeting, she basically calls Takane out for being a prick and just goes off on him. And at that point, they storm out of the meeting, and the guy's still afraid of losing his job, obviously. But Takane is very intrigued at that point. And so he basically says, yes, we're entering this, engagement agreement. And he starts to come and, give her extravagant things and take her on dates. And he's just a philanthropist about the whole thing. And she tries to torture him with each date. So it's just really interesting. I love the humor and the comedy in this one. This one's definitely on the more innocent side for an age gap. I've never felt really icky reading it, as some people can in an age gap. So I just want to put that out there right now. This is very innocent. It currently has 12 volumes published in the US. And, I think they've kissed once in the whole, 12 volumes. So from there, it's just this really interesting dynamic, and you see them both grow as people, because obviously he knows how old she is at some point, and they agree that it's just going to be this thing where he waits until she's old enough before they get married. They're both very invested in each other, but they're also, they've drawn that line in the sand where they're not going certain places. So it's really great, and I really, really enjoy that. So if you're gonna try an age gap, this one's really funny, really easy to get into for most people, so that's why I recommend that one. So jumping into my last recommendation here, it's going to be Hatsuharu. So Hatsuharu is one that is really flying under the radar, and I don't understand because I love it so much. So in Hatsuharu, we have this boy, and he's kind of this player, and he's really just kind of been, what's the easiest way to describe this? He's just kind of going through all the girls, and he doesn't really have feelings for any of them. He's just looking for a fun time. So what happens is he does this to a girl, and her friend has a huge issue with it. So she basically comes up to him and punches him in the face and tells him that what he's doing is not okay and he needs to stop. From this point on, he doesn't really have he can't focus on anybody else but her, because she's the only one who has the audacity to call him out on his behavior, because anybody else was fine with it, his friends were okay with it, whatever. And so it's about him changing his ways and pursuing her for a romantic relationship, because he feels like he needs somebody in his life to do that for him. And so it's just this really interesting dynamic. And it's got a great cast of like friends as well. So I think there's 8 of them. And so we're getting other couplings throughout as well. And it's just really, really fun. I really enjoy this because we do primarily spend our time in our male characters' perspectives, which is something we don't see a ton of in shoujo manga. Because typically these are teenage girls reading it. And so they usually have a teenage girl inner monologue. So it's fun to have that reversed and have it be the guys and have it be like, but she's acting so weird, I don't get it. Like, and the other guys like throw out some weird, ridiculous things that are obviously not it as either. And so it all just plays really, really well and feels very authentic and realistic. And I really, really enjoy it for that. So, anyways, yeah, Hatsuharu is one that I think a lot of shonen readers would also enjoy for the same reason. I like you. So those are my 5.
Oh, okay. So, my 5 are actually all one shots because I thought it would be good as like as a starter pack for new readers, so you're not having to go and invest in full series. So, and I also wanted to make sure that I have like a diverse set of romance, to look through. So first I have a BL romance, and it is Our Dining Table by Mita Odi. This was published by Seven Seas. This is about a young man who kind of has, I guess, trauma centered around eating. So he doesn't really eat with other people. And because of that, he hasn't really made a lot of friends through his workplace because people really like to eat together. And he doesn't do that. But then one day he's out and about and he ends up actually meeting this little boy who has an older brother. And long story short, they end up bonding over cooking. And it's so cute and so sweet, and there's this sort of found family feel, and food is kind of part of it. Like, you don't really get a whole lot of recipes and things like that, but you do get to watch them do like cooking together, and they get really excited to hang out with each other, and over time they do fall in love. And what I really appreciate about this is that although it is a one shot, it is very well fleshed out, and the romance is so sweet, very innocent. And if I remember correctly, there isn't the typical kind of trauma that you see a lot in like BL. It's not a sexual trauma, thank goodness. So I was so relieved to see that. There is trauma, but it's not of a sexual nature. And it's just such a sweet story. I actually would like to sit down and reread this. The art is very nice. It's not the best art that I've ever seen, but it is enjoyable. It's sort of sketch-like, which is nice, and it goes really well with the cute little story. So I don't have much else to say about this one except for that it's really good and it made me cry. I definitely do recommend that one. And kind of in a similar vein, I have a Yuri title that is called I Married My Best Friend to Shut My Parents. This is about, two women. One woman has been pestered by her parents for a while because she's not married. And so her friend is like, hey, I'll marry you and it'll make them mad and they'll leave you alone. And so they basically enter into like, I think it's more of a common law marriage, but it's a fake marriage that of course turns into real love. The best friend already had feelings for the annoyed woman and it's so cute and sweet watching them like fall for each other. Like the one friend already likes the one or the other friend, and that friend is sort of learning that she also has feelings for her friend. It's just so
so precious. And they are adults, which I really appreciate. They are working women. They have very different personalities. One is very responsible. The other is a little bit more um, flighty, flaky, but they really are adorable. Um, I don't, these are so simple that I don't really have, I guess, to go too deep into them. Um, did I mention the author? I did not. This is by Kodama Naoko, and it is also published by Seven Seas. Seven Seas has done a really good job lately of posting really interesting one shots. I've noticed lately.
I would agree with that statement right there.
Yeah, I love them for their one shots. I mean, they have a lot of other good stuff too, but their one shots have been really good. Um,
Kind of taken over for Vertical in that sense.
yeah, I would
Yeah,
agree with
really.
that. I really would agree. I'm not mad. So the next one is Train Man. Now, apparently, Train Man has a lot of different versions. Like there is a seinen version. I think there is a shonen version as well. I was told that the shonen version is not the best one, but so I have the shoujo version, and it is by Machiko Ocha, and this was actually published by Del Rey, which Del Rey weren't they taken over by Kodansha a long time ago?
Yeah, they were absorbed
Yeah.
by Kodansha.
Right. So
Just like Vertical.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm not sure. I found this randomly at a bookstore, so I don't know how easy this is to find, but this is based on a supposedly possibly true story about a young man who I think he's part of this group chat or this online group chat, and they're all people who can't get dates. Basically, they're all kind of like single and not happy about it, and they go to this group chat to complain. But he ends up meeting this girl on a train. He ends up essentially helping this girl on a train, and after that, they have this relationship that's slowly growing. And he's like, "Oh my gosh!" Like relaying all of this stuff in this group chat, and so everyone is like rooting for him and giving him tips on what he can do to win her over. And what I really liked about this is that it takes a trope that you typically see reversed, where it's like the girl is usually mousy and for whatever reason she's unappealing, and then she goes through a makeover. Like she's all that. Do y'all remember that movie?
Ugh, yeah.
It's sort of that similar thing where it's like, oh, this ugly duckling girl gets a makeover, except for it's a guy in that situation. And I think it's good to see a guy get, a taste of his own medicine. See that reversed. And it actually is really cute. And by the end of it, I was pleasantly surprised, at how much I enjoyed this. I also really enjoyed the interaction that he has with his online friends, and speaks a lot to the fact that online friendships are just as, or can be just as meaningful and important as real life ones. And so I don't know, I liked this one a lot. And again, it's a one volume series, so you're not really investing too much money or time into it. Oh, and the art is okay. It reminds me of like kind of mid to late 2000s art. Next I have Oh My Sweet Alien. This is by Koji Miyata, who, by the way, after I finished reading this, I had wanted to look into more of his works, and I found out he passed away, which is really sad.
What's that?
Yeah, I don't think I ever read why or what happened, but yeah, I was really sad to see that, because I really loved this. I think technically this is maybe an omnibus and not so much a one shot, but I mean it's in one volume. And this is about a couple. They are a married couple, which I love to see romances that are centered around established couples. But the wife is an alien, and it's just interesting seeing how they navigate their relationship and life and dealing with in-laws, just all the things that you deal with when you are a married couple anyway, but with the added, I guess, interesting spin of the wife being an alien. And I'm not gonna lie, I think one of the reasons I like this so much is because I'm in an interracial relationship, and there are some parallels, like not I'm not an alien, but but sometimes it like there are things that, you know, kind of feel like you are sort of dating like interspecies or something. But I could relate to a lot of things in this. And it's a really cute, funny little story. There's a lot of shenanigans, and you get to see the wife is very cute, and she's very much drawn in a way that I would say this is probably more so meant for maybe a male audience, or if you're like bi like me and you like to see cute women, then you're
Yeah.
also gonna like this. But yeah, there's a lot of like sci-fi, you know, elements to it because it is the alien is a wife, or the wife is an alien. They do actually travel to her home planet, which was an interesting little scene. But overall, I do enjoy it. Oh, and they also have a child who has crazy powers, and that's also very interesting. It's a little wacky, but super cute, and it has a lot of heart, which I enjoy. And then finally, because I am who I am, this last pick is a hentai. I can understand why everyone would be interested in it, but it is called Intimate Days, and this is by I'm so bad with names, but Ikuhana Nido, and it is published by Faku. And so far, this is probably the most woman friendly hentai that I have read. All of the it's an anthology, and so all of the stories are based on or centered around different couples, but it's so realistic, and the I don't know how else to explain it. Like all of the coupling are they're realistic, and the women have a lot of agency, and they're allowed to be sexual, and there's consent, and they are just strong women who are making their own decisions, and it's amazing, and I love it. I would highly recommend this for anyone who is wanting to get into hentai and you might be a little nervous. This is something that I would 100% recommend. There's no like questionable consent, which is something that I dislike. And I mean, it's sexy. It is sexy, smutty romance. So, yeah, that was really short and sweet, I guess. Those were my five. I do want to make an honorable mention, though, if I can.
Sure.
Okay, so this is an ongoing series that I have been very much enjoying, and that is An Incurable Case of Love by Maki and Joji. And the reason,
Oh, I love this one so much.
yes, there's only 2 volumes out so far, and it is so cute. I have read, well, I tried reading Happy Marriage, and I did not like it. I did not. So
You should try SP Baby. It's only 2 volumes and by Maki and Joji as well. And I really enjoyed that one.
okay, I will try that one because yeah, Happy Marriage was not my thing, and when I found out that she was, coming out with this one, at first I was really excited, but then I saw that it was her and I was like, "Oh, wait, no girl, I read your other one or tried to. I didn't like it." But this was so much better. I feel like An Incurable Case of Love is like what Happy Marriage could have been had the characters, specifically the main man, had not been trash. So, because I did not like him. So yeah, that's like my honorable mention. It's really cute. It's about a young woman who decides she wants to become a nurse because she has a crush on this doctor that she had a chance encounter with. He had helped her help someone, and so she wants to be a nurse and she thinks she's going to work with him. So for 5 years she has a crush on this man, and when she finally gets through school and gets to work with him, she confesses her feelings like immediately, and he's basically like, woman, I don't know who you are, we are at work, what are you doing right now?
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny. You get to watch them, their feelings for each other grow and change, but you also get to watch the main woman grow and change as a nurse and learn, that she actually really likes being a nurse and not just because she wanted to be with this guy. It's super sweet, super cute. And I can't wait to read more of that one. So, yeah.
So my sort of starter pack for romance manga, I made mostly based on like what I've seen have wide appeal in in the past, like with just like the circles I run in. Um, Series that are popular with multiple genders, multiple different, aged readers, uh, readers with multiple different interests and favorite genres. Uh, that was what I was thinking about when I made the list. So the first two are series that I talk about all the time because they're favorites of mine. The first one is Nana, which is kind of borderline between shoujo and josei. It ran in Cookie, so it's kind of in a gray area. If I had to look at like typical Western reader expectations of josei versus shoujo, I think this fits more into the josei side of things.
I would agree with that.
But this is a series about two 20-year-old women who end up on the same train to Tokyo, and they end up sort of chatting the whole way there. One of them is a sort of an up-and-coming rock singer looking to reform a band. The other one is chasing her boyfriend, which turns out great, as I'm sure you can guess.
Beat conundrum.
But basically, once they arrive in Tokyo and go to their new apartment, they find out that, crazy, what fate. They are actually roommates in the same apartment, and both of their names are Nana. So it's about just both of their lives. The one chasing her boyfriend quickly gets nicknamed Hachi. So Hachi she's kind of boy crazy. Obviously she's super in love with her boyfriend at the beginning of the series, and I don't even feel like it's a spoiler to say that that doesn't go the way that she wants it to. And she ends up cycling through a lot of different guys some of them are decent, some of them are not. Nana, meanwhile, ends up forming a band with a few guys and ends up getting entangled with this rival band where her ex-boyfriend is the guitarist. And it's all very dramatic. It's young adults, playing rock and roll, having sex, dating all kinds of different people, and making all kinds of questionable decisions. And just the writing of this series is really strong. Ai Yazawa is a fantastic character writer, especially when it comes to characters who are just a hot mess.
I love me some hot mess characters, that's for sure.
you know, if you've read Paradise Kiss, you know this. If you've read anything by her, you know this. She is a master of characters whose lives are just constantly falling apart, mostly because of their own decisions. So, but it's really compelling. It's like, even though they keep making choices that make you go, stop, no, you really want to just root for them. And, you know, with the angle of rock music and the music industry in Tokyo, and with one of the lead women being a very butch sort of rock star character, which isn't that common in shoujo and josei manga. I've seen this series appeal to a lot of different readers who wouldn't necessarily find themselves enamored with this type of melodrama. So it is long and it will probably never end, but I recommend it. I think it has a broader appeal than Paradise Kiss, even though it is longer. And in a lot of ways messier. But it is a fantastic series. And both Nanas are fantastic characters who definitely have a lot of romantic tension with each other.
Ah.
So that helps as well. The second series is my favorite series of all time, which I talk about always. And I think was the first series for at least 3 of us. All of us?
No, not all of
Most of
us.
3 of us?
It was early in my reading, but it wasn't my first.
But Fruits Basket was, I think, foundational for a lot
It's a
of
rite of passage.
manga readers of our generations. And, of course, it's got the anime out right now, which I highly recommend.
Oh, it's so pretty. I love it.
Second season starting in the spring.
I know. I'm so excited. Little girl squealing.
This series is about a girl, recently orphaned girl named Toru Honda, who, you know, the most ridiculous part of the premise that you just kind of have to accept is that she is so self-sacrificing that she, rather than dare to burden either of her 2 friends, when her grandfather is like, you know, I'm going to remodel the house, can you stay with them for a few months? She decides that, well, she's going to be on her own eventually, so she buys a tent and goes to live alone in the woods. Okay, Toru.
Right.
The logic of teenagers.
Oh, gosh.
I guess given some of her trauma and stuff, it kind of makes sense, but it's also kind of sad to think that, like, there's literally only 2 people in the entire world that she could even consider, like, asking. But, yeah, so basically when she's exploring the woods where she's set up her tent one day, she runs into a house where she runs into the older cousin of the most popular boy in school, Yuki Soma. And through various hijinks, she ends up not only meeting the cousin Shigure and the most popular boy, Yuki, but also their estranged other cousin, sort of bad boy, Kyo, who's been missing for a few months. And she ends up discovering a horrible secret about this family, that they are possessed by the spirits of the Chinese zodiac, and when certain conditions are met, they turn into their animal. So Yuki's the rat, Shigure is the dog, and Kyo is the cat who was left out of the zodiac. And the series is really just about the Soma family, like, not just the curse, but, like, this sort of huge, oppressive, patriarchal in a way, because it's actually, well, institution of this huge old family. It's about cycles of abuse. It's about kids growing up with trauma and kind of learning how to get past that through, their found families who they've, the support system they end up developing for themselves, and how they sort of overcome their past trauma to essentially become human, become fully themselves, functioning people. It is also a romance series. I would say this series is about love in a lot of different forms.
I would agree with that.
It has a cast of thousands, so readers coming from shonen manga, I think, can sort of find a familiarity in that. There's a character for everybody in this series.
Completely.
A lot of wacky side characters who all get their own little arcs. There's the angle of the two boys who, Yuki and Kyo, who hate each other and also both do karate, so they're, constantly, like, slapsticky, like, beating each other up. And I've found that this series tends to be a hit with just a wide variety of readers. People coming from shonen, people coming from shoujo, people new to manga entirely, young readers, older readers. This is just, even though it's getting up there in its age, and has some aspects that certainly haven't aged all that well, I think overall it's just still a really strong and fun story that a lot of people find themselves attached to in one way or another.
I would agree with that.
The third series that I have is sort of a more comedic one. This one, I think a lot of people, when talking about romance recommendations, come to My Love Story, which is written by Kazune Kawahara and drawn by a different artist. And that series is really cute, but it kind of, for me, lacked a bit of forward momentum. There were a lot of times when there wasn't a whole lot going on, it felt like. Just two cute people being cute, which is fine. Personally, my recommendation would be Kazune Kawahara's older series, which is High School Debut. This series, I think, is 14 volumes long, but you can get them in 3-in-1s from Viz. Or 16. It might be... Whatever. 15? Doesn't matter. This series is about a tomboy softball player named Haruna who basically, going into high school, wants to remake herself. She's decided that she's not going to be softball Haruna anymore. She's going to be Haruna with a boyfriend.
Yes.
She wants to make her high school debut. So she's reading all these, like, teen magazines to, like, get fashion advice and, like, how does she be cute and girly, and just, like, utterly failing because, she has the body type of an athlete, and these, like, frilly, stupid clothes look terrible on her, and basically she's trying to be someone that she isn't. She's trying, like, full force, though. Like, good luck. But, I love her spunk. She's just... Everything she does 110%. But basically she decides that, when she learned softball, she needed a coach, so maybe she needs a coach in love too. And she ends up getting the brother of her frenemy, who is a really fun character. The brother of her friend is like super popular, like handsome boy named Yo, and he agrees that he will coach her in the ways of love and finding a boyfriend. Basically, what guys like, with the condition that, you know, neither of them is to fall in love with the other, which lasts about 2 volumes. Most of this series, honestly, is just these two people dating, and what I find really fun about this series is that it doesn't get, like, it only gets more interesting and funnier and more fun to read when the characters start dating. Like, you know, I really like series that manage to keep the romance compelling and moving forward and keep you rooting for the two characters like long after they've started dating. And I think that's something it has in common with my love story. I really like that Haruna is, you know, not your typical sort of hyper feminine wallflower that you see in shoujo manga. She's very loud. She's very out there with her personality. She's a tomboy. She loves softball. She loves sports. I like that Yo's sort of stoicism is treated as like actual social anxiety that he kind of has to confront and deal with throughout the series. And I really like how Haruna's extroversion and his introversion play off each other. And I think, like my love story, this series has a lot of positive messages about sort of being in a healthy relationship as a teenager for teenage readers. So that's always a plus for me as well.
Actually, need to read that.
Right? It sounds so good.
It's really good. It's older, Viz. I'm not sure if there are volumes that are hard to get. The 3-in-1s are easy. You can get those. So then we have another comedy, which is Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun, which is technically a shonen manga, but very much sort of a parody of shoujo manga. It is about a shoujo mangaka named Nosaki, who is otherwise this very aloof, sort of gruff high school boy, and a girl who tries to confess her love to him, but he thinks that she's asking for an autograph, so he just gives her an autograph and then offers her a job as his assistant, and she's just like, well, all right, I guess I'll take what I can get. And her name is Sakura. And then sort of just a variety of other characters, some of whom work as Nozaki's assistants secretly, and some of whom are just sort of associated with that friend group. It's a 4-panel series, but it's probably one of the best 4-panel series that I consistently read. It's just consistently entertaining and funny. If you like Ouran High School Host Club, I feel like this is a more updated version of that in a lot of ways. There's a lot of playing with gender roles. There's a lot of different couples that you can root for. And there's a lot of just lovingly poking fun at some of the more ridiculous aspects of shoujo manga. So, highly recommend that one.
And we all love playing with those tropes.
Yes.
Yes. I think two of the most gender-bending characters are probably the fan favorites and also my favorites are Mikodin, who
Best girl.
best girl. So the ongoing joke is that Nozaki bases all the characters in his like garbage shoujo manga off of people he knows in real life, except that he always switches the genders. So his heroine is based off of
His
one of his
male
friends, his best male friend named Mikodin. His name is Mikoshiba Mikoto, but Nozaki is like, in my heart, I call him Mikodin because he gives off such powerful shoujo heroine energy. And he's like a huge otaku because like his thing is like he can be really suave when he wants to be, or rather when he doesn't want to be, because once he realizes what he's saying, he just gets super embarrassed. I really like the one joke where he goes to like talk to a bunch of girls, like, I can totally talk to girls. And then he's just like talking and laughing with them, and Nozaki and Sakura are like, hey, this is actually going really well. And then Nozaki gets a text from him that's like, help. He's so cute.
Right.
And then the other one is the prince of the drama club, who is the basis of the hero in Nozaki's manga. Her name is Kashima, and she is my wife.
She's amazing.
She is very much the sort of Takarazuka, like, male-playing, like, stereotype, you know? But, like, she rocks it so much. Aggressive bisexual energy, which I always appreciate. And, yeah, just so effortlessly princely while also being, like, a huge idiot. But making it look graceful.
Her consistent
of course,
running away from her club activities is just peak
Yeah.
comedy.
Yes. And the fact that she's, like, madly in love with the
Senpai.
head of the drama club. But, like, he's the only person she can't flirt with. Because she's, you know, an awkward teenager in love.
Yeah, right?
So that's a really good series. The anime is also wonderful. So, and the last one that I wanted to add to the list, because I'm me, is a Yuri manga that is coming out this year. We are getting a one-shot manga called The Conditions of Paradise by Akiko Morishima. I just love Akiko Morishima. To me, she is the queen of, like, sapphic, adult working women in love with each other. It's just, her stories are cute, they're sexy, they're, like, I guess, I don't know about realistic, believable. They're very escapist as well, which I actually kind of really appreciate. I just think that she's a really solid choice, whether you're looking for romance in general or Yuri romance in specifics. Her stories are just really well crafted, really cute. You're gonna smile when you read them. And her art is just adorable and soft. Like, her girls are so soft. Unmatched. Everybody pick up her book.
I will. 100%. I will.
Right?
And that is my choices for, like, a starter pack, I guess. For the widest array of readers I could think of.
I think you did good. Or I should say you did well.
We are very specific about grammar here at the Red, Right, and Left podcast. All right, so the next, like, recommendation-based question that we got is to recommend some smutty manga with a decent story. This is from Rin, at Rin Reads Manga, friend of the show. So
Yes, yes, yes.
I am sure that our two guests have some recommendations for this category.
Well, I guess that it's very subjective because good story is different to everybody. I mean, there's obviously those ones out there that are just like pure smut, and that's what you've signed up for, and that's fine. Those are typically TL manga titles. Like those are just pure smut. But I think for me, a couple of smutty series that have a decent plot line to them as well. The first one being Everyone's Getting Married, even though it's got its flaws, and I'm not going to shy away from its flaws, it does have a decent overarching plot in which we're dealing with a woman who has always wanted to get married and stay home and be a mom, and a man who has no desire to get married at all, who engage in a romantic relationship. So you see them feel the ups and downs of their relationships. On a second read, I actually ended up liking it a little bit better than the first time. So that'd probably be my first one. And then the second one's just kind of fun for me, and that's Blackbird. It's actually a shoujo. And about halfway through the series is when it starts to get smutty. But essentially, it's this girl who has these special powers, and these demons seek her. And it's about this one specific one who's known her since they were children, coming back and keeping the promise to marry her and make her his. And it's fun and hilarious. It's got more of that paranormal kind of thing, and it's got its issues too. He's very alpha male, so if that's not your thing, that's not going to be your favorite. But yeah, I would say those two.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and have to just like recommend some hentai. I
Do it.
one of like obviously I'm gonna say Intimate Days. I already recommended that, but it's so good. And another one that I'm really loving is Grand Hotel Life. This is by Sumiya, and you can get it on Faku.net. But it's another anthology. I wasn't sure what to think about this one at first when I bought it, but as I started reading it, all of the, or at least what I've read so far, all the stories are so good. They all feature actual women, grown women, and again, they all have agency, and the stories are just really cute. Like the first story is about a woman who develops a crush on this guy, and she's imagining herself with him. We're just going to leave it like that. And then she thinks she's not going to meet him again, and she does. And she really does. And it's good. And it's so good. Oh, it's so, yes. And it's so good because it's kind of a story about like her like self exploration, and her like also learning how to express what she wants, which is very important in my opinion for women to be able to feel comfortable expressing what they want, in bed.
Completely.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then like the second story is actually about a couple who they seem like they've been like together for a while, and the woman is super like grumpy. Um, because a lot of things were going wrong, but that, although all the things are going wrong, they're still happy that they're together in this hotel, and they're like on a vacation, and it's just really cute. And I mean, it's hentai, so it's very explicit, but it's adorable. And she's hungry and she gets fed. I don't know. I'm a sucker
It
for,
sounds super cute.
yes, it's really cute. And I'm such a sucker for like food and sex. So like it's like right up my alley. I'm like, yes, this is a story about me. So this is one that I've very much been enjoying. It's not a series, so I don't know if that really counts. I don't know. I really enjoy this. As far as series go, none of like the romance series that I've been reading are what I would consider to be smut. They're not really on my like even like Everyone's Getting Married is really good in my opinion, but I don't know. I feel like it's pretty tame.
Yeah, that one was pretty tame
It
to
is
me
pretty
as well.
tame.
Yeah. I'm trying to
And
think
that's
of.
why I like to recommend it as like a gateway for someone who's just
Right,
kind of starting to
yeah.
get into
Because
it.
it's like
Same with
it's
Blackbird.
right, exactly. It's good for like if you've never really delved into smut. So yeah, I guess that's it for me.
Yeah. I would okay, we're going Yuri. If you are
Do
attracted
it.
to women, or interested in stories about women getting it on with women.
Yes.
First of all, second shout out to The Conditions of Paradise. I absolutely love Akiko Morishima's smut. Her girls are so soft and beautiful.
So excited for it.
And the stories, like the romances she develops between her girls, are also really sweet and interesting. And it's just, it's just good. Also, anything else, if we ever get anything else from her in English, I just recommend her as a monolith. Also, the first volume of this one, that I talk about more than I should, is going to be out as of when this podcast goes up. I think it comes out on the 11th. But this is Scarlet, which is
Oh, yeah. I
yeah.
forgot that one's coming out.
by Chidi Uino.
Because isn't that like a
it's-
vampire meets Red
Yes.
Riding Hood kind of
Yes.
situation?
I'm so
Oh my
ready.
gosh.
Okay, so I don't know if I would call this like good writing. It's definitely very trashy. But like, if you are a super gay edgelord like me,
I mean, I'm
this
with
is
you.
so much fun. The smut's really good. Like the two girls are super sexy, and the story here is I believe it's over in 2 volumes, but it seems like it might be continuing. There's room for continuation if the author decides to,
Gotcha.
basically. But it is kind of over with volume 2, I guess. But this is about a werewolf girl based around Red Riding Hood, named Iris, and a vampire girl named Fine, who like have this. Basically, Fine is a vampire because of this weird drug that turns people into monsters. And they are both like fantasy, like grim fairy tale based, like narcotics officers trying to solve crimes related to this magical drug. So they smooch, they bite, they fight crime, basically.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
And there's like this tension, right? Like Iris like wants to, as a werewolf, wants to like eat Fine, but it's like there's love there too, and Fine wants to, like Fine needs Iris's blood and stuff. So there's all that
I'm dying.
super edgy sexual
Wonderful.
tension here. If that's your thing,
Yes. Yes, it is.
it's definitely my thing. So I recommend that specifically to people who heard that premise and were like, ooh, and to nobody else. In terms of like straight romance, I was thinking of Butterfly's Flowers, which is older.
Oh, I've heard of that one.
It's out of print, but this is 7 or 8 volumes. It's an older, like josei romance title about the main character is like grew up in a really rich family, but like her family lost their fortune. So now she's working as like a really typical like office worker. And basically going into her new job, I think, she has like this boss from hell who's like, that's a trope in josei manga, I would say. At one point, like, she gets like the tender side of him at like one point where he's not yelling at her to do her job better. And he accidentally slips and calls her my lady. And she realizes that he was her servant when she was a child. and he still feels this like devotion to her. So it's like this kind of power play thing where it's like in private, it's kind of like she's the more dominant one, but then at work he's the more dominant one, and it's really ridiculous. Like, this is a comedy series, and I just found myself laughing my head off the whole way through. It's not the most progressive thing in the world, but it was very enjoyable to me. So, and it is very smutty, I would say. It's on the smuttier side of josei manga.
Woo!
So,
Gee.
yeah, I don't have quite many recommendations because I don't read. I mean, I do, but again, like Aisha was saying, it's sometimes there's some things you read for story, and there's other things you read for story, right? So,
Right.
I wanted to mention, this is a series. It's a hentai series, put out by Irodori Comics, and they very kindly sent me some of the newer stuff. The first chapter has kind of the prequel chapter to this. It's on Faku already, and this is the post series. It's about a high school student, almost graduated, so she's 17, maybe 18, and her relationship with her tutor, who's come to like help boost her grades. It's normally I'm not that into this type of dynamic, but I think it's a really well done in how far, like, in the sweet kind of first relationship type of thing. And I think, considering it is, like, you know, there for just we're having sex, like, that's the characters.
That's what it is.
The characters are actually quite sweet, and I think they have a really interesting and cute dynamic. If you like, kind of, again, like that first relationship, not love necessarily, but that first love type of thing, and it's quite you know, vanilla and sweet, and so if you're not into anything like super hardcore, you just want something to warm your heart as much as it warms your brains,
or your nether part,
then you're fine. This is a good one.
Oh goodness.
So it was a nice surprise. I was really happy that they sent this one to me and recommended, and they are a newer, you know, licensor, newer publisher, so they are trying to build, you know, their readership, and I do think there are some titles that they put out already that are worth reading, including this one. The first two, I guess, proper chapters come out on the 14th, so Valentine's Day plans for anyone. But also they do, if you're not aware, Irodori Comics does license doujin works, so these are like self-published titles in Japan. And they do also have a like hentai line, which is Irodori Aqua, and they also have Irodori Sakura, which is their LGBT line, so Yuri and BL, which they do also have their first BL title out as well. It's definitely smutty, and it's kind of it's got some things that I wouldn't necessarily like. It's kind of tropey in ways that are pretty typical for BL, but if that doesn't bother you, then check it out. That one's about a university professor and his like assistant.
Yeah, I have that one. I'm gonna read it.
It's not perfect, obviously, but it is.
I'm gonna read it.
It's fine it's a good starting point, I think, if they're wanting to go into BL. And if you're a BL fan and you don't mind tropes, then it's pretty okay. But the other one, speaking of BL, my other actual recommendation, or, you know, answer to this question is and this one is kind of darker in themes, but not in the relationship necessarily. So if you have issues with a lot of like toxic BL tropes, then it doesn't have any of those, but it is a darker series, and that is Twittering Birds Never Fly.
I knew you were gonna say that. Sorry, I knew. I knew it. I was waiting for that. Yes, I bought it because of you.
It is very smutty. There's a lot of sex in that series, but it's also a quite bleak Yakuza story. So this one, it's by Koyonoda, who I adore. I really, really like her work, even if it isn't, always the happiest type of manga. Her actual smut is like beautiful. Her artwork is just really lovely. Anyway, but this is the story of a like young Yakuza. He's not the head of the group, but he's definitely, with like powerful within the group. But he's the slut. He kind of sleeps around with everyone and always has. They don't within the group, nobody really respects him because he does sleep around so much. He's a bit of a nympho, right? So he just will sleep with anyone and everyone. And so there's kind of this issue of like, did he sleep his way to the top and that type of thing as well. But one day he gets a new member, who becomes his personal bodyguard, who is impotent. So he like sees that as a challenge. He's like, oh. But at the same time, this new member, he's recently just got out of prison. He used to be a police officer, but he murdered someone for a good reason. But let's, but he, after getting out of prison, he saw this Yakuza guy, and basically like fell in love. He's just totally bewitched by him. He thinks he's absolutely beautiful and like really interesting. So he decides to join the group to dedicate himself to him. So there's an there's an interesting dynamic, and obviously with him not being able to perform necessarily, it also gives them a different level of relationship that the other members, or like the other people around this guy, doesn't have. And so you can see that their relationship is much more based in like less of a physical thing. He's not hanging around him because he wants to sleep with him. He hangs around him because he actually like respects him and wants to be around him. So in saying that, a lot of the smut is not between these two, but later on it does get more smutty insofar with them. Although in saying that, this series is kind of like in perpetual English hiatus because of June. I hate them so much. Because this series has 6 volumes in Japan, I believe, but only 3 in English. And it's only been 3 for several years now at this point. But Koyono's work is kind of, in general, I think she does a really good balance of story and smut. The other one of hers that I would recommend in this sense is Even So I'll Love You Tenderly, something like that, which is really good, and that's only a single volume and still in print, I believe, and that's a really good one. And I also wanted to mention, in the same kind of vein as Twittering Birds Never Fly, there's a series called Intense, which was put out by Net Comics, and it's a manhwa. And that one has so it's kind of a similar thing. It's not Yakuza, but it's gang related because this is set in Korea, so it's manhwa. But I think it's an assassin or like a gunman for hire who is sent to the country basically to lay low, who starts to form a relationship with this guy who's just like a handyman for all the brothels and stuff out there. And because he's living with him, that's where his accommodation is organized or whatever. And I mean, intense is the right word for the series. There's a lot of tension in this, in just like it's the kind of thing where the build up is almost more like more satisfying than the actual end. Like, well, yeah, they're sleeping together. It's a good one. Check it out, and it's again beautiful, especially if you like Yoneda's style of artwork. So,
Ooh.
yeah.
I mean, honestly, I feel like we could spend an entire day talking about like BL smut, but y'all already have an episode, about
Yep.
BL, so go listen to their other episode about BL because it's amazing.
Seriously.
It's so good. Oh man.
Yeah, so the next question we have is just recommending josei romance. This is from at 365 days of 801,
Oh.
365 801, another friend of the show.
Mhm.
So yeah, just josei romance. What do you recommend in general?
Do you want to go first, Aisha?
Okay, I guess if I'm going first, there's one that I almost don't want to recommend this because it is probably never going to get finished in English because it was a Tokyo Pop release. It's called, I say Supply, but I think it's like Suppuri or something like that. Actually, let me get it. It's a Tokyo Pop release. Technically there are 5 volumes. Like the first 4 volumes were released in single issues, and then the first 3 were, and then like the last 2 are in an omnibus. It's by Mari Okazaki. I actually like her. I read a one shot of hers on Kindle called "Will I Be Single Forever?" I think is what it's called.
She's another gal mangaka, so
Right,
from the same school
yeah,
as Moyoko Ano,
and
Kyoko Kazaki.
right, and a very similar like kind of art style. Like I really like this series. It's just hard to recommend because it doesn't like the 5th volume kind of you could see it as an ending, but I really want more. And I think there are like, and Ray, you probably know this, but I heard there are like 8
I think
volumes
it's
or
10.
something like that.
Yeah,
Is it 10? Okay.
I think it's. I always see like the what would you say, collector's editions at the
Mhm.
used bookstore,
Mhm.
and I'm always like, should I pick them up? But they're always like $8 a piece. So I'm like, cheap.
It's I really like this. So it's about I forget what the woman's name is. Minami, I think. But she's like a working it's josei, so it's like a working woman in her I think she's in her either late 20s, early 30s. Again, it's josei, and that's usually the age range. And it's just kind of her like navigating work life while also trying to navigate or have rather a love life, and it's that messy, dramatic. It's my brand, basically. Messy, dramatic romance. Um, and I really like it a lot. I wish that I could read the rest of it. When I realized that it had more volumes in Japanese, I was just like, what the heck? What is my life? I'm never going to get to have an ending because I don't know. I really would love someone to save this series and give it to us in its entirety. And if I can mention one more, I guess it would be Erika Sakurazawa. All of her one shots that you can get in English, as far as I know, I think there are 6 of them, like Angel Nest, The Aromatic Bitters, Between the Sheets, a couple other
Yeah,
ones. I can't, but
Yeah.
all of
I
those.
second this recommendation.
Yes. And
Yeah.
again, they're all like
And
messy, dramatic romances, and I love them all. And I think she
yep.
also is she Ray? Is she also
Yes,
okay?
she
Yep.
is a gal mangaka.
Wow, I clearly
So
have
she
a
is
type.
from the same school.
Okay.
So while you're at it, if you are into the same type of series that Aisha is,
Mm.
you should also they're not romance. Like Helter Skelter is straight up horror, and Pink is kind of
I
a
own Pink.
surrealist allegory. But Kyoko Okazaki is another member of the gal mangaka kind of school. So, and Helter Skelter is honestly one of my favorite books of manga
Oh,
of
really?
all time.
That's been on my list. Okay. I'm gonna get it for
I
sure.
can't
It's
do
freaky
horror,
as
so
hell.
I'm gonna stay away from that
If
one
you want
then.
some like feminist like beauty standards Frankenstein story, it's really freaky. The movie is also really good. The live action movie.
Ooh, okay. Definitely getting that.
Let's see. For me, I would go ahead and recommend Perfect World extremely highly. I just think that everyone should read it, and it's really, really good.
I'm so excited we're
yeah.
finally getting it in print.
I agree.
It's start to finish just really good. The romance is really well developed, obviously in terms of handling issues of disability and specifically people with mobility issues is really top-notch representation. Again, love the focus on accessible architecture since the main character is an architect who is really focused on accessible architecture. And yeah, it's just like it's so reading it is so stressful. It's such an emotional roller coaster. It's basically like every emotion that I want josei manga to be making me feel, I am feeling all at once in this manga. The romance, the heartbreak, the pain, the sadness, but also like that relief you feel when they finally get back together. It's just like
I know, right?
Yeah, so that would be, I think, my highest josei recommendation at the moment in terms of romance. So, yep.
I guess I'll go next. You guys stole half of the ones I wanted to mention, so I'm grappling here a little bit. But one I want to mention that's just a lot of fun is Love Massage.
Yes.
It's a Kodansha digital first. And essentially it's about this woman who's not very happy in her life, and she ends up scheduling an at-home massage because she's been so stressed. And what she doesn't know is she's booking an erotic massage. And so it's all about her getting erotic massages and eventually engaging in a romantic relationship with her masseur. And it's hilarious. I love it so much.
Accidentally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And the smut is good.
The
Shae.
smut is so
the
good.
Smut
The
is
art is
so good.
amazing in that one.
I'm glad you mentioned that one. I forgot.
It's a lesser known one, I feel like, so I really felt like I needed to mention it here.
You talked about it on Twitter, and I remember because I bought it because of you.
I found it just by chance, and I was like, "What is this?" And
I was just looking through my Kindle and remembered that you can get You're My Pet,
Oh yeah.
Kimi wa Pet, or what used to be called Tramps Like Us, entirely free.
Yeah.
No way.
It's on Kindle
Prime or
Unlimited right
something?
now.
Yeah. But even if you don't have Kindle Unlimited, you can actually just read this whole thing for free.
Oh god, that's so cool.
I don't know if it's like a Prime thing, because I do have Prime. But yeah. That is, it's got its issues for sure. But I mean, you can read a classic josei romance series that is lauded by a lot of people entirely for free. So I would recommend that one just on the basis that you don't have to pay for it.
And then I think my second choice would have to be a recent read that we did for Thirsty Thursday in January, and that would be Spell of Desire. I really enjoyed it. I know not everybody in our group did, but man, I had a fun time reading it. All of the art is stunning. I feel like our main girl gets prettier throughout the series, which I think is very well done artistically. And the guy's just really nice to look at. Kaname's a hunk. And it's just really good. It's about this girl who has latent magical powers, and somehow she's inherited her mother's powers. It's never explained very clearly.
Yeah.
But anyways, this guy Kaname comes in and says, "I'm here to like protect you and help you hone your powers." And how he helps her control her powers is to like kiss her and be kind of physical relationship like with her. And it's just really, really good. It deals with like light magic or white magic and black magic and things like that. It's really fun. It's a good time. If you know you're just going in for a good time and you're not going to have something like mind blowing or earth shattering, it's pretty great. But if you're going in expecting to be like profoundly lifted, it's not going to happen for you with this series. And I'm never going to tell you that it is. But man, it was really fun and the art was absolutely stunning. I want to find more by this mangaka for sure.
Yeah, Midnight Secretary's fun if you like.
Yeah, that's one I
vampires.
get recommended over and over and
Yeah.
over, but I haven't read yet, so I can't in good conscience
Right.
recommend.
I've read.
The guy's a dick.
Yeah, he is.
That's,
I've read
he's
part
a dick,
of it.
but I still liked it.
I think I read like the first maybe 2 volumes of that. I read one volume. I'm such a nerd. But while we were in Kyoto, we went to the manga museum, and I read the first volume of Spell of Desire there, and then I also read the first volume of Midnight Secretary, and then I think I read the second one once I got home. And I remember feeling like it was, I don't want to call it Twilight. Because it's not.
It's not dissimilar.
But right, exactly. There's just, there were some similarities, and I was like, but a little less obnoxious because the main woman, and I can't remember her name, but she definitely had more personality than Bella, despite the fact that I can remember Bella's name. So.
Her name doesn't matter.
Right. It doesn't matter.
I don't remember the
Irrelevant.
guy's name either.
Right. I don't remember his name either. I keep wanting to call him Kaname, but I'm thinking of Vampire Knight, and we already know. We already know how I feel.
Okay, they are not related.
They are not at all.
Headcanon, they are not related.
Headcanon, no, they're not related. I promise.
Oh, man.
I promise.
Ugh.
There's no incest in Midnight Secretary.
Right. Ugh. Vampire Knight traumatized me, to be honest. Like, just traumatic.
Anyway, so Josei romance.
In a completely like different lane of romance, I think my choices would be this is one that you can also read the entirety of digitally, and you can read most of it for free via Comixology and Amazon Unlimited. This is Norame Cantabile, which is a romance about a pianist in a music school student and a conductor who is also a student of this music school. So he you know, in an orchestra, he's up the front directing everyone, but he has and he's quite like well known, he is very famous, but he has some trauma for some reason that he can't get on planes. So he's trying to get over his trauma, because if he can't go on planes, then he can't like travel, and he can't go to Europe to like get better, which is where obviously like a huge portion of musicians who want to be in orchestra and to excel go to train in Europe. And it's this girl, this pianist, she's kind of an idiot savant. She just, her life, she just nothing, she doesn't know how to live. But she's a fantastic piano player. And he kind of he enjoys her music, but then he kind of gets drawn into her, but also just how much of a mess she is. And he's like, if I didn't, you know, come and check on you, you would be just dead. You just like wouldn't eat. You wouldn't know how to exist. And it's their relationship. I think it's a 25-volume series, and there's a lot of other side characters, obviously various different musicians. If you like orchestras and orchestral music and that sort of thing, you know, it's quite nerdy in that sense. It's got a lot of info about all sorts of instruments that I don't think people are aware that even exist necessarily. It did initially get a Del Rey print release for the first 14 or something volumes, but it is now complete in English from Kodansha digitally. So there's that. Good fun. And it's kind of a, I don't want to say classic, but it's an older one. I think a lot of people know it via the anime, which you cannot watch legally anywhere. I think the first 20 volumes are free of this 25 volume series. So you get a decent chunk. And if you're enjoying it, then, you know, wait for a sale and buy the last 5. Read that. My other one would be Wotakoi, Love is Hard for Otaku, which is a comedy series about a girl who is a closet otaku. She's very into BL and, you know, just fanish, dorky stuff in general, but she thinks that she cannot be her true self to anyone that she's dating, and her last boyfriend found out that she was an otaku, so she actually leaves her company and joins a new company because they were working together. So she's like, I can never see him again, I must leave. And she ends up working at a new company where coincidentally a childhood friend is also working, who is also a huge otaku, but he's very into gaming. He is always gaming all sorts of things, PC, console, mobile, whatever game exists, he's playing it. And she's like, well, you know that I'm a dork, so I can drink with you after work and complain about like how I have to hide all my dorkiness, and I don't have to pretend to be someone to be, you know, hang out with you, but she doesn't see him like in a romantic sense. And he's like, well, I already know you're shame, so what if we dated, it wouldn't be a problem. And she's like, nah, let's not do that. But then pretty much immediately afterwards she's like, okay, let's give it a shot, let's try this.
It's super cute.
It is very cute, it's very funny, it's very referencey to a lot of things, so if you are a otaku yourself, you'll get a lot of references. There's also 2 other characters who are also a couple who they also work with, who are also secret otaku. One cosplays, the other, he's just like the normal kind of otaku.
Right.
He just reads manga and watches some anime. He's like not super into it, and he's like, oh my god, you guys, like, what? What? I also really like the main male character's younger brother and the relationship he has.
Yes.
Oh, I love him.
They're so cute. I love those two. It's a fun series all around. It's very funny. It's a 4-coma, I believe, for a majority of it. So 4-panel. So punchy, jokes. It's kind of a slow burn at times. There's nothing really like sexual or anything going on in it. She thinks something sexual is going to happen, and then like, no, he's just cracking out the second controller so they can play Smash Brothers together. It's like, okay.
And it's adorable.
Yes.
Are you telling me that's not sexual?
I mean, for him, absolutely is. Like, that's the just deepest layer of intimacy.
It's foreplay.
That's like
him.
even more intimate than anything you could do in the bedroom, honestly.
But it's a very fun series, and I think everyone should read it, especially if you're into it. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the focus on like people who have like a healthy kind of work-life balance with regards to their hobbies, and like people who don't turn their entire hobby like into their entire identity, but kind of, you know, have a work self and a gaming self.
I fully agree.
And I feel like that's super relatable to me personally and how I live my life. So
Right, same.
And last like recommendation based question that we have before we get into just like random other stuff. What is the best manga to read for a hopeless romantic? This is by at Mech Anime Review, a guy named Scott.
I can't pick any. There's too many.
For a hopeless romantic.
I would say like Kazune Kawahara is good for this. My love story is obvious,
was
but I would once again point to high school debut as my personal favorite Kawahara
Yeah,
manga.
I was going to say My Love Story is kind of the cream of the crop in that sense. If you just like seeing sweet kids being in love, and that's
Yeah, like Kase-san as well. If you want to dip into the Yuri side of things, I think that one's a very wholesome. Like these two girls just love each other. Also, the teacher Yuri that's coming out later
our
this
teachers are
year.
dating.
Um,
That's what the English is.
yeah, the school nurse and the PE teacher are dating or something. This is what they went with. That one's, adult ladies, two teachers who are just very in love, kind of navigating sort of a first relationship as young women. And like everyone's cheering them on. The principal's super into their relationship. The other teachers are cheering them on. The students know, and they're all cheering them on. So that's very wholesome.
Okay, I guess I'll go because I had to go to my bookshelves to kind of look. So I'm actually surprised that I have not mentioned a clamp story like at all throughout
I
this
am
whole
too,
thing.
honestly.
Like and I think it's because a lot of their series aren't necessarily categorized as romance. Um, they do have romantic elements, and Clamp is kind of known for their like their characters that are in love have like the most over the top gestures of like showing their love, like literally like I don't know, giving an arm or an eye for someone that they love. I would never. But I think I would recommend Wish. Um, it's
Yeah,
one.
I would second that.
Yeah, like I really like. I know that not. There are some people that don't like this. I really like it a lot. And I know that I know it's not perfect, but I really enjoy it, and it does kind of meet my like hopeless romantic like criteria because it is sort of, I mean, one of the main characters is an angel who is not supposed to even really like fall in love to begin with. Like it's kind of like a weird thing. So just the fact that this angel um falls in love with a human, and then the human guy is one that you don't really think that he's gonna fall in love, but they do. I don't know. It does give me very like hopeless romantic vibes, and
Yeah,
so I would say that. Um,
I'd agree with that.
yeah, I mean it's.
And repping some queer non-binary romance
Yes,
there as well.
yes. I didn't want to
Right.
mention that just because I know there has been some like some people don't agree, but I mean it's so
Fuck
I
queer.
would say they are gender fluid.
Yes,
They
and
are.
right, because I'm just like
Middle fingers up
exactly
to you, okay?
because
If you got a
Yes,
problem with
right,
that,
yes, because
you don't need to be watching our
right,
podcast.
because
That's how I'm
Kohaku
feeling about Oscar from Rosa Versailles,
Yes.
even though both are used.
Right.
I'm just going to use they, because that's
Right.
who Oscar is to me.
Yes. Well, Kohaku is it's like very much cemented in the story that Kohaku is neither male nor female. Like they are.
To be
Exactly.
fair, the old translation does gender
Oh,
them,
really?
which is unfortunate.
Ew, unfortunate. Because the one that I have, which is like a more recent Dark Horse omnibus.
Yeah, I have the
it's,
Dark Horse omnibus,
Yeah, the
too.
translation very much makes it clear that like
Yeah.
Kohaku.
So I
is-
mean, like,
Mm.
if you're just like confused right now because you read the old translation and you thought Kohaku's a girl, in the Japanese they are not.
Right,
They do
they-
not have a gender.
right.
They are an angel.
Yes, they're an angel. They are
So-
genderless.
Basically, if you're confused, it's okay. You can keep listening to our podcast.
Right.
But
But
if you heard that they're non-binary and you're like, "Fuck that shit," then
go away.
bye.
They go away.
Yes. But I really do enjoy Wish. And if I could like mention just one more, okay, I would say Whenever Our Eyes Meet, it's a women's love anthology, and it's
Oh yeah.
released by Yen Press, and I love that they specifically said women's love and not girls' love because these are all women. I also low key
It
have
says that in Japanese.
oh
too.
good because like I low key have like a little bit of a fetish for like office ladies.
Same.
I love office ladies and just to be able to like own an anthology of stories about office ladies in love with each other. I'm just like, yes, this is
You just
my
like a sharp dressed lady. It's okay. There's nothing
yes.
wrong with that.
I'm just like, yes. So, but like I said, it's an anthology, so I, I don't want to go through and like explain what every story is about, but it's very sweet, very cute. There isn't really, as I'm flipping through here, I don't think there's really much smut. It's more so sweet and like romancy. You know, it's just cute and like there's a lot of meet cute stories and oh, I want to reread this. Oh, this is making me want to reread things. So yeah.
Okay, I think I finally figured out what I want my choice to be. And
Okay.
that's going to have to be Honey So Sweet. Because there is
Ah.
not a more sickeningly sweet romance story on the market that I've found. It is just too pure for words. It's about this boy who receives a sweet gesture from this girl that just feels very commonplace to her, but it meant the world to him. And so they end up at the same high school, and he looks kind of rough. He's dyed his hair like bright red, and he's got piercings and all this kind of stuff. But he approaches her with this giant bouquet of flowers and asks her to date him with the intention of marriage. But because she's afraid of him, she initially says yes. But the more they get to know each other, the sweeter it gets, and she sees that he's just a teddy bear in, like, wolf's clothing, and it's just so cute and so pure, and I just love it so much. That one has to be my choice for a hopeless romantic because it is just swoon-worthy and adorable, and I love it.
So, I think we're going to have to split this podcast into 2 parts. So, look forward to part 2 where we will answer all of the rest of your questions.
Yep.
We just too much fun with Aisha and Shae.
Yep.
Too much
It's
of a chatterbox.
Valentine's Day double feature.
Just to show how much we love all of you. It's a lot. Thank you so much. As per always, our social media, including our guests, will be in the description below. Follow my wonderful co-host Ray on Whimsical Pictures, as well as her Twitter. Follow Shae at ShaeGeeksOut on YouTube. She also has Instagram where she is very, very active, as well as her Twitter, as well as Aisha, who is at MommaLuvsManga on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter as well. Follow them. They make great stuff, and they're definitely worth watching, especially if you are enjoying our conversation up till now.
Yep. Both great.
We hope that you are having a wonderful Valentine's Day, either with someone you love or just looking after yourself. And we will catch you in part 2. Bye till then.
See ya.